Daniel Cormier is out of UFC 197 against Jon Jones, the rivals between one of the better rivalries, I should actually say, in the UFC, even though I still to this date do not believe at all that they really hate each other. Although a little bit of controversy, after Daniel Cormier's Instagram post, which he had to take a lot of time into making the decision to stay out of 197, he had this to say, at least via his Instagram. The decision to not fight on April 23rd was one of the hardest decisions I've had to make. I've been scheduled to fight 18 times, and I've made that walk every time. I want to apologize to Jon Jones, Lorenzo Fertitta, Dana White, and all of the UFC fans for not being able to defend my title. This truly saddens me, but as with everything else in life, it goes on. The recovery should not take very long, and I can't wait to compete and defend my title again. For all the fans, for your support, I appreciate each and every one of you. Daniel Cormier. Jon Jones, very quick to get onto the Twitter and then very quick to delete the tweet. The deleted tweet was, "So much for being willing to die," is what Daniel Cormier mentioned he would be when it came to fighting. And then, of course, the next day, Jon Jones, this is why I don't believe in the rivalry being that big. I don't wish injuries on anyone. I hope you have a healthy recovery, Daniel. Enjoy that belt. It's a made-up rivalry. They really do like each other. They're competitors.
They're both about that cake.
They are all about that cake.
I know there was some petition where they were just saying, why don't we just postpone the fight and have a ridiculous UFC 200 if Cormier could make that fight and have Jones-Cormier. But I think Jon Jones in this situation is just anxious to get back in the octagon. He's had very up and down past year or so.
Very fast and slow.
Yes. In some cases. So I think he's just anxious to get back in and put on a show for his fans, which is understandable. He had posted an Instagram video which urged UFC to find a last-minute replacement, and he has stated that he is not a fan of taking last-minute fights that change up through different opponents. Obviously, they train no matter what, and they're going to train whoever they face, but they do adjust based on their opponent. That's just sheer knowledge of sport. No matter who you're playing against, it's simple tactics. You try and utilize their weakness as your biggest strength. So, of course, it's going to be a different weakness now that Jon Jones has to isolate and has to work on perfecting in 19 days. It's not the easiest task to do, but Jon Jones is remarkable. He's obviously one of the best, if not the best.
He's considered the pound-for-pound
and if there's anyone
right now.
If there's anyone who I would put my faith in being able to overcome this small adversity before his fight, it is Jon Jones, and I am still anxious and excited to see him get back into the octagon, because I think that's the only way to straighten out his ups and downs at the moment, is to get him back in there, get him focused on his fight, and I'm still anxious to see him fight. Do I wish that they would potentially, once in a while, UFC consider not just making that immediate money back and just continuing with the fight that they were scheduled for? Yes, but that's not the way Dana White thinks. We've seen this numerous different times. It's all about money, and he wants to save the money for that gate, and he's just going to make even more money in the next time. This is the question. Do they run the risk of a very similar situation and having one of their biggest stars fall from grace, and then what?
All right, I have like 15 points I want to make on this video. I'm going to try to go through them as fast as I can. Okay, no, so number one, because you brought up DIAZ and McGregor, and I read the comments, yes, my mistake. DIAZ and McGregor fought the first time at 168 and 169 pounds respectively. I made the mistake of misreading a lot of information and saying that they were at 155. I obviously now know that, but thank you for always being there to call me out on it, and we'll do much better to obviously get the weight classes, or at least the weight, the actual weight, exactly on point. Okay, moving forward. Number two. Yes, they are always taking a gamble. Dana White is always gambling with his stars, but is that maybe not the reason the UFC is becoming even bigger and better? Because again, when we look back on the clip where when Ronda Rousey lost and McGregor lost the cover of UFC 2, there was a lot of outcry of, I want to say, the UFC just losing its stars again. There they go. Why are they putting these fights up when they can just wait for postponed Daniel Cormier, Jon Jones? There was one guy who tweeted it out. I wish I had the tweet on me, but he said the same thing when George St. Pierre left, and when Anderson Silva went down by Chris Weidman. There's always going to be new stars, new marketable people in the UFC. So yeah, if Jon Jones were to lose to OSP, which I think would be pretty shocking actually, considering looking at OSP's record, a loss to Ryan Bader in 2014 by decision, a loss at Fight Night 73 against Glover Teixeira by rear naked choke. He's coming off a recent win. But Jon Jones, he is truly the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. Should have absolutely no problem handling this fight and looking forward to the future. But if he were to lose, it's an interim title fight. Jon Jones still fights Cormier for the second time. If he loses in the first round in 13 seconds, I don't see Dana White saying, okay, OSP, you go fight Daniel Cormier at UFC 200.
But and that's the problem, is it's not based on merit. And that is the consistent argument between wealth and what sports is supposed to be based on, and fairness and opportunity, and rightfully gaining your shot at the title. But as we say with Frankie Edgar, and by the way, to go back again, yes, I know he's fought Aldo before and he's lost, and it is a good chance for him to rewrite that script. But Frankie Edgar's been wanting McGregor for so long, wanting the man who's on top. If you lose against someone 10 years ago, I'm not saying it was that, by the way, everyone needs to understand sarcasm, but then you want to get yourself back on top. You don't go and fight the person that you've lost to before. You want to fight whoever's on top at that moment, and that's what I mean with Edgar. So the same thing happens here, that if Jon Jones was to lose this, which I don't think he will, OSP should be given an opportunity to win for the fight. That's the way it should work. That's the way sports was based on, but it doesn't happen in UFC.
Ethically, morally, you are totally correct.
But
financially,
no one gives a
you
shit
are
about
nowhere near
ethics.
nowhere near.
No one cares about ethics. I've seen The Wolf of Wall Street.
No one cares about ethics. All right, so two more elements. One, we have the light heavyweight rankings, in which some of the other options that could have been chosen to fight. OSP is between 6 and 10. But your champion's Cormier. One is Jon Jones.
Rumble
Johnson was not in the equation. Gustafsson, I thought maybe should have been. I think he's at least would have given a little more spice to the fight. Glover Teixeira and Ryan Bader. The light heavyweight division is very, very top heavy.
Yeah.
Because everyone else that falls below it is not in Dana White's eyes, the super marketable guy that they want to see fight. And again, in all fairness, technically should be Anthony Johnson. He's number 2 in the light heavyweight rankings. This is from UFC. Lastly, a poll via Fox Sports on who do you want to replace DC against Jon Jones. We know OSP of St. Peru got only 1% of that vote. I randomly clicked on Gustafsson. I don't know why. I really wanted to click on no one, save Jones Cormier 2 for UFC 200. It was close between Anthony Johnson and UFC 200. That is where the audience wants to see Jon Jones and Cormier, at least 30%, 52% Rumble Johnson.
Here's a thought. Do you think that this is a tactic by Dana White, is to push forward an opponent that Jon Jones should comfortably take care of, so that he's saving himself for Daniel Cormier, so that they won't lose money, because I don't think that it's as significant as a card. No offense to OSP.
We also have to think about, really quick, we have to think about the people who bought the tickets. A lot of people were buying tickets for Jon Jones.
Yeah.
And to move that fight to UFC 200, although it gives the people who bought UFC 200 tickets even more of a reason to get excited, it does take away from UFC 197. Granted, Demetrius Johnson is fighting, and I'm a huge fan of Demetrius Johnson, but he's not Jon Jones. We're going to what we need is for you guys to comment below. Other than who do you want to see Dana White fight in the octagon, and we could possibly make that in UFC 2 for everybody. We want to know who you thought should be fighting Jon Jones in UFC 197. Are you excited to watch OSP fight Jon Jones? And looking forward to UFC 200. Should they have saved that fight, JJ versus DC2, at UFC 200? April 23rd is UFC 197. We'll be bringing you some kind of coverage of it on that Sunday or Monday. It's only 19 days away. We're excited for it. Make sure to comment below. I already said that. @Francis_Maxwell, @ChaseRumor91, @TYT Sports. We're also over on Facebook and on Watchable.